So, you think you could survive in the Roman Republic? Buddy, unless you've got a high pain tolerance, a trust fund made of denarii, and an unhealthy love for barley mush and state-sanctioned stabbing, odds are you'd be dead faster than you can say "et tu, brute." Let's just start with the basics. Clothing. Romans loved to wear wool, not fancy alpaca wool. Itchy, sweaty, homespun wool that clings to your skin like an aggressive, moist towel. If you were rich, congrats. You get a tunic and a toga. But togas were these massive 20-foot-long bed sheets you had to fold perfectly, like some kind of origami burrito, just to look respectable. Wear it wrong? People will think you're either a fool, a foreigner, or a corpse being prepped for burial. And if you weren't rich, you get a single tunic and probably spend most of your time trying to not get mistaken for a slave, which was a very real concern, because there were more slaves than citizens in Rome for a good chunk of the Republic. Imagine living in a world where accidentally being too quiet on the street might get you sold to some guy with a fondness for gladiator games and very little regard for your bones. Speaking of dying horribly for other people's entertainment, the Romans had this obsession with honor, military glory, and gratuitous violence that makes modern action movies look like a knitting club documentary. If you were a Roman male citizen, congrats again, you're legally required to join the army. Not if you feel like it, not if your horoscope says it's a good time for new endeavors. No, you're going. You're fighting, probably dying. Because pre-Marian Reform legions were basically just amateur hour with spears. You had to buy your own gear. Helmet, sword, sandals, and maybe some armor if your uncle's pottery business was doing well. And the campaigns weren't just weekend retreats in Gaul. You could be gone for 20 years. And while you're off fighting, some Germanic guy named Wolfhart or whatever, your farm is falling apart, your family is starving, and your debt is racking up like a student loan made of sadness and wheat. And don't even get me started on Roman hygiene. If you like public bathrooms where everyone sits in a row and shares the same sponge on a stick dipped in vinegar water, congrats, you're gonna love Rome. Oh, and privacy? Doesn't exist. Personal space? Also no. You'd better get comfy with 30 strangers doing their business shoulder to shoulder, while discussing politics and probably making passive-aggressive comments about your technique. Bathhouses were everywhere. And yes, they were social and cultural hubs, but the water didn't get changed that often, and people weren't exactly big on soap. Soap was for barbarians. Real Romans used oil and a fancy stick called a strigil to scrape the filth off themselves, like a salad being prepped by a fork. Combine that with lead-lined aqueducts and wine cut with seawater, and it's no surprise the average Roman lifespan was like 30. Assuming you didn't die of malaria, dysentery, or stabbing first. Politics? Oh, sweet Jupiter. Don't get into Roman politics unless your dream job involves bribery, betrayal, and getting mobbed by angry senators on the Senate floor. The Republic was a dumpster fire of corruption, held together by senatorial ego and duct tape made of blood oaths. Voting was a mess. It was class-based, slow, and usually rigged by whoever had the biggest client army or the fattest purse. Speaking of clients, the whole system ran on patronage. If you weren't born into the right family, you had to latch onto a patron like a polite barnacle and pray he liked your daily compliments and cheap gifts enough to help you not die. And if you did make it big, well, enjoy the next round of civil wars, because Rome went through political leaders like fast food rappers. Marius, Sulla, Pompey, Caesar. Every couple decades, the Republic would throw a tantrum, and someone would march on Rome and kill half the Senate. And the women? Don't even think about it. Unless you were a Vestal Virgin, which meant you got power, respect, and a comfy chair at public games, as long as you never ever had sex. Ever. Or you'd be buried alive. For most Roman women, life was basically be born, marry some guy twice your age, pop out heirs, die of childbirth. Legally, women couldn't vote, couldn't hold office, and had the legal status of a child under their father or husband. And God's help you if you wanted a divorce. Sure, they had rights, technically, like the right to not be beaten to death in public, or the right to own property if every male relative you ever had mysteriously vanished. Now, let's say you're not a citizen at all. Maybe you're a Gaul, or a Numidian, or worse, someone from Carthage. In that case, Rome's foreign policy was basically submit, pay taxes, give us your sons for the legions, or we'll burn your city and salt your fields. And yes, they actually did that. Carthage got wiped off the map, its people enslaved, and the land symbolically cursed so hard that Latin students are still reading about it 2,000 years later. Rome was the kind of place that invited you to dinner, complimented your toga, and then stabbed you under the table for looking at them funny. Their entire foreign strategy was just divide and conquer on a loop until they ran out of unconquered people to divide. So no, you wouldn't survive the Roman Republic. You'd either die in war, die in poverty, die of disease, die of political backstabbing, or die because your neighbor heard a rumor you might be plotting against the gods and decided to report you to a censor. The only people who thrived in Rome were the ultra-rich, the ultra-lucky, or the ultra-terrifying. Everyone else? Just a cog in the blood-soaked marble machine that kept the whole republic spinning until it inevitably exploded into empire. But hey, at least they had nice roads.